You're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming on iTunes, Google Podcasts, and at DCAUreview.com. Now, here's today's episode.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 75 of the DCAU Review. I am your host, Cal. With me, as he is every week, my good brother, the other host, it's Liam. Liam, welcome to episode 75 of the DCAU Review.
Yeah, we have a special one to review this week. It being our 75th and all. We're in the middle of our month of Superman reviews here in October, and we were looking for a fun one we could review. It's our 75th episode, after all. It's a kind of a big deal.
Yeah,
and so we picked, I think, probably one of the more memorable episodes of this series. If you don't, especially if you're eliminating like the Dark Side episodes and stuff, this really, I think, was a standout episode. I remember being really interested in this, especially as a kid who didn't know a ton about the Legion of Superheroes and stuff like that. And there's a little spoiler for what we're talking about. We're talking about the episode New Kids in Town this week.
That's right. Ironically, it's a Superman episode featuring zero Superman.
How about that?
Yeah, well, and because of that, we'll explain to you why if you've never seen this episode as we go through our synopsis and then get into plot. Here, Liam, go ahead and read our IMDb synopsis for this week's episode, New Kids in Town.
Yes, and this is for New Kids in Town, which is written by Stan Berkowitz and Rich Fogel and directed by Butch Lukic, and that synopsis reads as such. 3 members of the Legion of Superheroes from the 30th century travel back in time to stop Brainiac from killing Clark Kent in his youth.
Yep.
In Clark's youth, not Brainiac's youth.
That would be interesting. Baby Brainiac?
Yeah.
Like Baby Darkseid from the Dark Knight Metals. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's a thing. Anyway, so yes, we have an episode here that takes entirely in the future, takes place entirely in the future, and then in the past.
Yes.
So no present-day, modern-day Superman story to be told here, which makes it a unique episode in and of itself. As you mentioned, the Legion of Superheroes, a.k.a. the Legionnaires, get a big part of this episode. It's our first introduction of them into the DCAU, which, of course, they then play a part later on in Justice League Unlimited. And then, of course, Liam, they were the stars of this year's very, very highly rated Justice League versus the Fatal 5 movie that just came out.
Yes.
The latest iteration into the DCAU, so which you can hear our review of that episode actually in the archives at DCAUreview.com. But Liam, in today's episode, let's jump into the plot. We have a opening scene featuring Brainiac, and we are told that it is the year 2979, so just 11 short years from the year 3000. That's right, we're going all the way to the year 2979.
The future, Cal?
Yes, the future, Liam. Yeah. 4 people got that joke, and none of them listened to our podcast. Anyway, so yes, we're in the year 2979, and the Legion of Superheroes are dealing with the aftermath of Brainiac, who is apparently, we learn later on in the episode, has just recently reemerged after being dormant for some time, and he's created this temporary anomaly into the past. So they follow him to find out where he is. They land in Smallville, and right off the bat, we have Cosmic Girl knowing exactly... I'm sorry, Saturn Girl, not Cosmic Girl. Saturn Girl. Saturn Girl knows exactly why they're there, because they land right smack dab outside of Smallville.
Yep, and from there it's kind of straightforward. As straightforward as a plot like this could be.
Sure.
The villain goes back in time to kill the hero before he becomes the hero. This is actually kind of similar to the plot of the main plot of the series Krypton that was on the Sci-Fi Network for the last couple of years. Not quite the same, but there was kind of that same idea where a bunch of villains that Superman, puts in jail later on go back in time to the planet Krypton before it explodes to try to kill Superman's ancestors so he can never come to exist. So that kind of plot's been done before. When you do a time travel plot like this, it can get a little hazy, but
it's also done ad nauseum in the Flash
storyline,
Flash TV series, Flash comic books.
Time travel's old hat if you're a comic book fan.
Travel back in time, kill the hero before they have the opportunity to turn into the hero, and everything will be right in your life.
Right.
So yeah. So based on that, and actually, I think that's very similar to the plot of Justice League versus the Fatal Five. Also, go back in time,
yeah,
and not before they were superheroes, but go back and stop.
They want to kill the Justice League so that the Justice League can never live to inspire the Legion of Superheroes.
So it's the if you're a supervillain and you're from the future, then your main strategy at least one point in your supervillain career is going to go back in time and either prevent said foils from being born or from existing in some form or fashion. So yeah, that's the plot here. I enjoy this, Liam. It's fun, despite having 0 Superman in the episode.
Yeah.
0 Tim Daly, 0 Clancy Brown, no Superman, no Lex Luthor, no Lois Lane. We do get Lana Lang.
Yes.
But no Lois Lane. So there's none of the staples. We do get Pa and Ma Kent.
Yes.
A little bit older versions of Pa and Ma Kent than maybe we saw in the premiere episode of Superman in the flashback. Obviously, they're now seasoned teenage parents. I guess I don't know. It's actually, I was a little confused as to when this takes place. Whether Clark is aware of his past yet. He obviously knows of his powers.
Yes. So it seems like this is set prior to the final little flashback we get in Last Son of Krypton Part 2, where he flies for the first time and Ma and Pa show him the ship and give him like the hologram where Jor-El and Lara explain that he's from the planet Krypton, because he seems very lost by all that, and he never flies in this episode, so I assume it has to take place before that flashback. So sometime between when they have found Clark while he's going to Smallville High with Lana, and but before he is fully aware of his his origins and of his destiny.
Yeah, so the plot then continues. The Legion of Superheroes have to help Clark sort of defend himself against Brainiac. Clark has to defend his house. It's very straightforward. Brainiac never actually reveals his plot per se. We just kind of assume that it is, because the Legion of Superheroes say that that's what the plot is.
Right.
I was curious, and this felt like a little bit of a plot hole to me, is Brainiac is Krypton. That's like one of his famous lines.
Right.
He is Krypton. Does he not know that Superman's weakness is Kryptonite? Because I don't remember an instance in the cartoon at all where Brainiac introduces Kryptonite when he's fighting Superman. Because it seems like that would be a very, very quick way to kill Superman. Go back in time, he's not expecting it, shoot him with a Kryptonite bullet, or, get a Kryptonite sword and cut his arm off,
right,
and make him bleed to death or whatever. Like, something. But no, he just goes and blasts him with lasers. So maybe the all-knowing, all-powerful Brainiac isn't aware that this is a weakness of Superman's?
I guess, and the thing is, if he wasn't a computer, you could say, it's an ego thing.
Sure.
Like, that he wants to do it with his own power set. He wants to kill Superman in, a quote-unquote fair fight. But yeah, being that he is supposed to just be, an AI in this world, you would think that would be kind of the first thing that he'd think of, would be what's the most logical and quickest way to kill him. But yeah, he's just using his laser weapons and these drone robots that he's sending after him, rather than perhaps using all of the tools that could potentially be at his disposal.
And I guess because Clark's powers haven't manifested to the point where he's flying and he's using heat vision and all that, he does use his X-ray vision, or they intimate that he uses his X-ray vision in this episode. But I guess you could say that his invulnerability hasn't manifested to the point where this is something that could kill him. But it seems like if you're a super smart supercomputer from the future, you would know that this is a weakness that Superman has, so just kill him that way.
Yeah, and I don't know if the idea is supposed to be that Kryptonite is a bit more scarce in the world.
That could be.
I mean, it's funny, because of the way this episode is laid out, we talked about it off the air, but this is very reminiscent. It could have been an episode of Smallville, almost.
Agreed.
And that episode, when Clark comes down in the rocket, he brings with him so much meteor rock, so much kryptonite, that it's like everybody has kryptonite in their everywhere. It gives all these people powers, and it hurt. It's like every single episode, seemingly, in those early seasons especially, had kryptonite in it.
Right.
So maybe in this world, it's not so common. Maybe it's just like Metallo's heart and the piece that Batman has and the piece that Lex Luthor was carrying around.
That makes sense.
There isn't a ton otherwise.
But wouldn't you, if you're coming from the future, make a pit stop on the way back through the past?
Right.
And snag a piece here or there?
Yeah, it seems like he could have, if he had thought about it.
Are we overthinking this too much?
Maybe a little bit.
All
but
right.
I do see your point, and I don't totally disagree with you there.
All right, well, because of that logic, and I applied that to this episode and not quite understanding why Brainiac, the all-knowing, all-smart computer, decided to just blast Superman with laser blasts, I gave this score of plot a 6 out of 10. What about you?
Yeah, I'm a little stronger there. I gave it 7 out of 10. For most of what we laid out, it's a fun story. It's fun to see the Legionnaires kind of look at Clark before he's Superman, and there's a lot of the episode where they're kind of trying to get him to hang back, and they keep saying, like, we'll deal with Brainiac, you just need to kind of back off. Although they do, once he's so confused and doesn't understand why this robot's trying to kill him, they do show him kind of his future, which, thanks to the convenient powers of Saturn Girl, everyone's memory gets erased, and nobody even remembers this adventure happened except for the Legionnaires themselves.
# plot device.
Yes. But, so for a lot of the episode, it's kind of them trying to tell Clark to, like, you like, back off, you hide, and we'll take care of this. And in the end, Clark has to be the one that stands up and stops Brainiac, ultimately, with some help from the other from the Legion members. It's, like you said, he goes to the Kent farm and attacks them, and Ma and Pa Kent get their shotguns and take a couple shots at Brainiac, which was funny.
That was a funny plot device. My other favorite thing is the fact that we have Kenny Braverman, who is one of, I guess, Clark's nemesis in high school. I believe he makes an appearance in maybe the other Lana Lang episode, or
maybe.
I feel like I've seen him before. Anyway, but he drops a couple pop culture references, but he gets thrown through or across the room or through things multiple times in this episode. So that was a pretty funny bit. And Brainiac has some great physical comedy humor in this episode, punching a guy in the face mid-sentence, being very monotone and droll because he's a robot, replying that it was an insufficient answer, and then you cut to seeing Kenny getting thrown through the door, out of the restaurant, into the street. Some good physical comedy there.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, Liam, moving on to our next category is going to be music. I don't have a lot of notes here for music. There was some, I guess that means it blended into the background, which isn't always a bad thing. I don't remember there being a strong Legion theme. You do get the Brainiac, warbly sound effect pop up when he first appears. But, I think a memorable Legion theme would have kind of bumped this score up from what I have here. I gave music 5 out of 10 just because that's our standard. That's middle of the road. I think a strong Legion theme of when they first appear and then when they come back in, one that's memorable at least, because I assume there was some music there, but something that stuck out. Again, we always compare it to that scene back in the Justice League episode of Savage Time, where the Blackhawks have that very small, it's an integral part, but a very small portion of that episode is devoted to them, but they have a very memorable theme.
Yes.
So I think something like this, where maybe it's a one-off, it's an episode, but if you apply a theme that's memorable, that would have been good. What was your score for music?
Yeah, I gave it 6 out of 10, so right in that same ballpark. There's a little bit of a theme that plays, like you said, not super memorable, when they show the Legionnaires going through the time warp, that I think is supposed to be the Legion theme, but it isn't super memorable. It kind of just sounds like sort of a generic, a moment of wonder kind of theme as they're going through this time warp and traveling back in time. And then I do like towards the end, during the final fight there, as the Legion have kind of all been taken down and Clark stands up, and you get a little bit of the Superman theme there as he stands up and takes the fight to Brainiac finally. And so nothing great, but I do think there's a couple things in there that I liked that brought it up a little bit. But 6 out of 10.
Cool. All right, so let's talk about animation and visuals. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Liam. This is a fun visual episode because of the character selection in it.
Absolutely.
What were your initial thoughts on animation and visuals?
I think the number one thing that people are going to probably remember about this episode is Chameleon Boy.
Certainly.
because we've talked about that before with episodes like Clayface or Ink or something like that. Any character you have that goes through all those different changes in shape, or in this case, he transforms into different animals and creatures and into Superman at one point.
Even himself. Superman himself, you get a little bit of hashtag Kate movement there.
Yes, it's pretty cool. So a lot of fun stuff, and they do cool things, like he turns into a brick wall at one point, he turns into like a metal shield at one point, and sort of his head pops out, and he's a very, and I mean this as a compliment in this case, a very cartoony character, and I thought they really nailed the visuals of him and some of the different stuff they had him do here. Saturn Girl doesn't really do much besides touch people's faces. She has no personal boundaries, and make people's eyes glow. And then, Cosmic Boy, who has the power of magnetism. They kind of visualize that by, like, when he's doing something with something metal, there's, like, a blue hue that goes around it. But, I think the standouts here are Chameleon Boy. I like some of the fights between Clark and Brainiac. Like, Brainiac uses these devices to take over, like a bulldozer and I'm not sure exactly what you call it. Something that like harvests wheat.
I think a harvester sounds right.
But it's like it tears.
Sorry, we're not farmers, people.
Yes,
we
don't
know.
So Clark's shirt gets all torn up and no blood or anything, but you do see that like this is taking a real physical toll on Clark, and these fights are so. I thought they did some pretty clever stuff there. What about you?
Yeah, I concur. I think one of the standout scenes actually is when Clark finally defeats Brainiac by using the whatever transport device that's on his belt. There's an official name that Cosmic Boy gives it that was pretty fascinating as far as what the device is that allows himself to transport himself. But Clark hits the 3 buttons on the belt, and all of a sudden he's transported. For some reason, Brainiac had the coordinates set for heading right into the sun, but it worked out for Clark's benefit because he hits the buttons on the belt in the right order, and Brainiac disappears, and then they cut to Brainiac floating through space, and it's sort of an up-close shot, and it pans out, and you see that he's headed towards the sun, and then his skin starts, his outer faux skin covering, right, starts to melt off, and you start to see the inner workings of the robot that had already been beaten off a little bit because of the gunshots and the battles that he had between him and Clark and the Legion, but it completely melts off, and you see this robotic body float towards the sun. It was a great visual. You get the glow of the warmth of the sun off of him. Really, really stark, great visual there. And I really appreciate this episode stuck out. It's a lot of stuff happens at night in this episode. As we always said, that seems to benefit most episodes because you can hide more imperfections and things that maybe don't stick out. I think Chameleon Boy is definitely the highlight of this episode. From his transformations, I like when he transforms into the alien bull type creature.
Yeah,
knocks Brainiac off the tractor, and you have off his scooter, not the tractor, or whatever you call that, sled.
Yeah,
cosmic sled.
The cosmic sled.
Whatever that thing is that he.
The cosmic lazy boy.
Right, whatever it is that he flies around in. But that was great. I think there's a lot of good visuals. Even the explosion that happens when the truck with the gasoline veers to not hit Brainiac and flies into the restaurant and explodes, and the Brainiac. I think that's really the highlights of the episode is that. And I struggled to find fault in this episode, so I ended up giving animation and visuals a perfect 10 out of 10. What about you?
Very nice. Yeah, I'm 9 out of 10, so right in that same ballpark. It's really, really well done episode. Even some of the little visual things they do, like they at one point they decide they're gonna have Clark blend in by wearing a pair of glasses, and we get like that. That's sort of like, I guess that's like the end of the episode. That's more of a plot detail, I guess. But they leave him with the glasses, and that's like, I guess, where Clark decides to start wearing glasses is because of this adventure. So But I thought that was a clever, kind of a clever little visual thing.
He also makes fun of his red underpants his classic Superman.
And see, I'm a firm trunks on the outside Superman.
Are you now?
Fan.
I don't give a crap either way. Honestly, I think it's hilarious that people care enough to make a big stink about it when the new 52 came out and they got rid of the trunks, and then again when they brought them back again for Action Comics 1000, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it's just hilarious that people care. For me, I feel like characters' costumes change so often that it really doesn't matter. If you get attached to one look, the next artist is going to draw a variation of it anyway.
Sure.
So if you're red underpants on the outside or you're red underpants are on the inside, then so be it. So, yeah. All right, Liam, moving on to our final category then, which is our always voice acting. Let's talk about our guest stars and guest voices today. We have some notable names on this week's episode and a couple familiar ones from our guest stars. Who do we have this week?
Indeed, we have the least interesting, Chad Lowe as Cosmic Boy, who most famously, as far as I could tell, is related to Rob Lowe.
Yes, they share a last name and blood, apparently.
Yes, he's Rob Lowe's younger brother. I wasn't able to find a lot of interesting things in his IMDb page, but yeah, he's fine as Cosmic Boy here. He probably has the least to say or do.
Very expositional from my recollection.
Yes, but yeah, he's fine. And then we have Jason Priestley of Beverly Hills 90210 fame as Chameleon Boy.
There you go.
I think he's pretty good, because again, it's that thing where he's kind of like the funny, quippy one, and sometimes that can get a little annoying, as we've talked about on past episodes with certain characters. But I think he does it pretty well, and they put a little effect on his voice too, which I think is cool, because he is, of the three, perhaps they're all supposed to be aliens, but he's the least human.
Right.
Alien.
Visually speaking.
So I think putting that little extra effect on his voice helped as well.
Fantastic.
Thought he did a good job. And then we just talked about it recently on our 70th episode. Melissa Joan Hart as Saturn Girl.
There you go.
Of course, Sabrina the Teenage Witch and
Clarissa Explains It All.
Of course.
And other things.
I'm sure she's still acting now.
I think she just she had a show on Fox, what's the Fox ABC Family with Joey Lawrence.
Where you're right. They were like a married couple or something.
Yeah, I think that was her last role on TV that I recall.
But, yeah, that sounds about
hey,
right.
what's old is new again, so I wouldn't be surprised if she makes a cameo in the Sabrina Netflix series at some point.
Yeah, I can see that.
They brought Sabrina back. So, yeah, she's perfectly fine in her role here.
Yeah, it's funny because their episodes you mentioned, Cosmic Boy and Saturn Girl are mostly there to just do exposition. Mm-hmm. Saturn Girl sort of shows Clark the future at one point. We get a little cameo from the rest of the Legionnaires, and she sort of has to explain that, like, none of this would be possible without Superman, and so we need you to be alive
right.
to go become Superman. I thought she did a good job with that. Other than that, we have returning. We have Mike Farrell, Shelley as Jonathan Kent. We have Shelley Fabares as Martha Kent, and Kelly Schmidt as young Lana Lang.
Let's talk about Kenny Braverman, though.
Well, that's the most important voice here. Why I saved him for last. Scott Menville, a.k.a. Robin of Teen Titans, and perhaps more importantly, Teen Titans Go.
Big fan.
Big fan of both those shows. And he's like the perfect school bully,
goofball jock.
Jock high schooler in this episode. And as you mentioned, a lot of the comedy of the episode is him getting thrown around,
launched for miles,
assaulted by these superpowered beings.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
But he's great in this, and he makes some pretty funny, if on the nose, Star Wars references as well when he sees Brainiac.
There's two little Star Wars references, which is pretty cool.
But yeah, I think voice acting is pretty strong in this episode. I don't think anybody's.
We didn't talk about the Goat.
Oh yeah,
hold up. The Goat.
We got two more.
We got two others.
So we have Jason Marsden playing young Clark Kent. This is, I have to imagine, other than Last Son of Krypton Part 1. I can't imagine there's another episode that Tim Daly's not in, besides this one.
Yeah, I would struggle, unless there... is he in... Is that a Batman episode with Supergirl and Batgirl? Or
yes,
okay.
Girls' Night Out is a
Girls'
Batman
Night Out
episode.
is a Batman
New
episode, so
Adventures.
that doesn't count.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would struggle to imagine there being I can't imagine there's another episode where he's not in it.
Yeah. So we have Jason Marsden, who we just talked about recently in the Static episodes, Richie Foley's voice actor, playing young Clark Kent here, as he did in Last Son of Krypton Part 2.
Because he's cool Clark Kent too, like too cool for school, he also is much more subdued and less over the top than Richie
True.
is.
Yes.
And not quite as douchey as Snapper Carr. So I think he does a fine... This is the role that he was made for.
Yeah. He's fine in here. And then, of course, as you mentioned, I can't believe I almost forgot.
The GOAT.
The GOAT, Corey Burton, as Brainiac, and like probably 4 other voices in the episode, as he does every time he's in an episode. We have Corey Burton here. He does, as always, a really great job as Brainiac.
He doesn't have much dialogue as Brainiac. Brainiac flies around a lot and just tries to kill Clark.
Yeah.
But
he does have a great line as when he attacks Clark at the Kent farm about how now it's clear that he is the true, like, strongest survivor, superior survivor of Krypton, and you're kneeling at my feet just as your father once did, and stuff like that. It's real good stuff.
Yeah.
And as you said, it's more of a minor role here because he's sort of just the backdrop to introduce the Legion into the world here. But he does great as well. So yeah, I gave voice acting 8 out of 10. I think it's mostly very good. Pa Kent is not my favorite actor of all time.
No, he's not
and
great.
And some of that's story related too, because much like in Father's Day, his first reaction when an alien robot shows up at his house is, I'm going to grab a shovel and go fight him with my shovel.
The only thing I thought about as we were watching this, and that was Clark literally tells him, nobody come up from here, I'm going to go attack these surveillance robots that Brainiac has sent to the house. No matter what happens, nobody come up. And the first crash that they hear, Pa Kent is ready to take a shovel up and attack. But my only thought is maybe, and like you said, very similarly on Father's Day, he decides he's going to be heroic, is maybe the idea is that's where Clark gets some of his heroic tendencies from.
Yeah.
Is that, because if you think about the Superman lore, Pa Kent plays a major role in a lot of things and was always, his death in the comics or even in Superman... Man of Steel, played such a pivotal role in the development of Clark's growth and who he was becoming a man.
In Smallville
as well. So I think maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but I'd like to think that that's why it's like, oh, well, this is where Superman gets it from. But at the same time, it's pure stupidity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more acceptable here because Clark's still a kid and they don't really know the full scope of what he can do, and that's more of him being a more overprotective father. I think when we saw him in Father's Day, when Superman is Superman in all his glory, and he's like, I'm going to go teach this guy a lesson, that's pretty dumb. This is at least a little bit, you can say, it's more of him trying to be more of a protective father, and that's fine. But I'm not a huge fan of Mike Farrell's. It's just very one note, so when he's trying to do a more dramatic, like, I'm going to go save my son type of speech, it's still in the same voice as, as he was when he was talking to Clark on the porch when they were melting the metal pipe or whatever in Last Son of Krypton.
Sure, I get that.
A little more range would be appreciated, I guess.
I agree. All right, I don't know if I get my score. My score is 9 out of 10. It's just a tick higher. I really enjoyed this episode. I think everybody does a great job. There were no performances that I thought that stood out as being negative. So and of course, because Corey Burton's so great and the rest of the cast really seemed to gel, I think it worked out really well. So that'll bring us to our final score, Liam, and that being a total for me. I'm going to total everything up here and get a score of 30 out of 40.
And I also have a final score of 30 out of 40.
Ooh, there you go. So, yeah, we have identical scores there. Again, we don't discuss our scores before we go on the air, but we have identical scores here. Let's talk about watchability, rewatchability. I don't know, see it or skip it, whatever we want to call this. This recommendation here. I recommend. It's not we've done this the last couple of weeks, but I don't think it's a must it's not a must-see because, well, actually, Legion of Superheroes plays a big role later on.
Yeah,
especially in in Justice League vs. Fatal 5. So, is this a must-see?
I'd say yes. It's important because, again, it helps to establish what Superman, and obviously we find out later the entire Justice League, means to that era of heroism and how they go on to inspire, people, 10 centuries later are still being inspired by their example. And I think this is a cool episode, and because it's the first time we meet the Legion, obviously, as you said, they come back in Justice League, both in the movie that came out this year and in the Unlimited episode. So I would say yes. I think this is a must-watch for just because of this is where it kind of starts for where we're first introduced to the Legion in the DCAU.
I would say in the scope or in the vacuum of Superman the Animated Series, it's a must-see overall over the DCAU. Because it doesn't really make a huge impact. It's not if I'm sitting down and watching Batman the Animated Series and then watching everything all the way through, or should I skip the episode? Yeah, throw it on. It's fun. Enjoy it. If you want to know is it integral to the overall story of DCAU, not really, because what happens later on with this isn't directly impacted or referenced. But it's a fun episode. You enjoy it. It's 22 minutes of some good fun and good performances and great animation. So, yeah, I would say go ahead and throw this one on. So, all right, Liam. Well, that will bring us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, if you have not heard our prior 74 episodes, if you've missed any of them, they are available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and, of course, streaming or for download over at DCAUreview.com. Of course, Liam, some of the benefits of going to DCAUreview.com, you can break it down by character. Go back and you can check out all the previous Brainiac episodes, or check out all of our previous Joker episodes, or break it down by different character, by different supervillain, whichever one, different series, however you want to break it down. We have the different categories there. And while this one didn't reach our upper echelon of episodes, it is a fairly high score. You can also check out our highest rated episodes, all categorized together by clicking on our top episodes tab. So yeah, super excited to continue next week, Liam. We're going to continue here in Metropolis as we are in the month of October. Do you have a preview for next week's episode?
Yes, so next week we're going back to early on in the series, Season 1. We're going to look at the first appearance of the Toy Man in the episode Fun and Games.
There we go. We did have Toyman make an appearance in the Justice League episode that we covered hereafter.
Yes. Good call.
Pulling these titles sometimes is hard.
Part of the Superman Revenge Squad or whatever that shows up at the beginning of that episode.
The knife stabby team.
Yes.
So, but this will be the introduction of Toyman to the episode, so definitely looking forward to that episode next week. Don't forget to follow Liam, who runs our Twitter page at DCAU on Twitter, for more updates throughout the week. But until next week's episode, I am Cal.
And I'm Liam.
And we will talk to you on that next episode of the DCAU Review.
Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.